Hello, my name's Jim Ashworth-Beaumont. I've been a prosthetist orthotist for over 20 years, a personal trainer for over a decade, and both of these are influences on my reflections as a transhumeral amputee of just over 2 years standing. I lost my dominant arm in a cycle versus articulated lorry accident in July 2020. I was rolled over and dragged up the road, resulting in polytrauma including extensive internal crush and degloving injuries. The humerus was fractured, and with full thickness laceration and abrasion, traumatic amputation took place at the scene. From the photographs, I estimate that around 30% of the limb length, including the elbow joint, was obliterated completely. Although the intact wrist and hand were recovered and delivered to the trauma theatre, the medical priorities were to save life rather than attempt any form of reimplantation. Many aspects of my life do require bimanual activities. At the top end, professionally, I work manually with patients, including passive positioning and interpretation of the forces they deliver, building devices and applying them to the human body safely and effectively. All this requires a high degree of bimanual performance to do those jobs, notwithstanding I've lost my dominant arm. Alongside NHS provision of a body-powered limb, I've been developing a myoelectric prescription with support of private prosthetics companies, utilising two-channel myo-control of the multi-grip hand and wrist, and using a linear transducer to control the elbow. I'm now pursuing osseointegration to improve the functionality of the prosthesis. So from a purely functional viewpoint, if I had the choice between prosthetic limb reconstruction, implantation or transplantation, the goals and functional parameters are the same in my mind. It's more an objective analysis of the pros and cons of whatever approach is deemed to be most appropriate. The counterpoint to this patient's desire for universal rehabilitation, as somebody who's worked in prosthetics and orthotics for over 20 years, prioritising activities around which to develop treatment plans and endpoint outcomes can be the most difficult exercise in rehabilitation. Simple approaches can be very, very effective for specific tasks, while for serial, highly adaptive daily function, relatively complex approaches or solutions may be considered more desirable, but the problems associated with that, weight and bulk of devices, implications of extensive surgery, scarring, vascular and neurological impairment, and simply the time associated with ongoing courses of treatment. And the more complex intervention, the more there is to go wrong. That's certainly the case for prosthetics. So although there's been a lot of advancement in terms of electrically powered devices and control strategies, it's surprising how successful body-powered approaches are and how widely they are adopted across the world. We contrast that with what we see when we use quite complex technological solutions in the real world. The maintenance cycle of these is quite short, they're prone to damage, there's a lot of expense, and there are complex logistical trains involved in keeping these devices on the road can result in extended periods of time when the limb's not being worn, a functional disaster. So in my particular case, limb salvage wasn't an option, but if the opportunity to retain a self-maintaining sensate limb existed, I would have pursued that as a first choice over a limited time period to attempt restitution of sensation and motor control of the limb. Relative impairment would raise fears related to inadvertently damaging the limb during daily activities because of poor vascularity and sensation. I've worked extensively with diabetic patients, those with neurological impairment. I've seen the risks associated with impaired sensation. I've also seen the effects of impaired perfusion, poor circulation, the effects on appearance also. One of the benefits of prosthetics is that you can remove a damaged or inconvenient device at will, send it away for repair, and obviously if you have an attached living appendage, that's not an option. I'm looking to ideally get the best function possible. Having an intact limb that functions reasonably well and looks good would be a negotiable goal. Now, if a limb transplant was an option and the promise was of a reasonable outcome, then I would certainly consider that. However, there's an extra worrying dimension I'm well aware of associated with implanting foreign tissues. That is, chronically depressing the immune system. Immune suppression is a massive concern to me. And one of the problems that almost killed me following my accident was sepsis. So my immune system and powers of healing are my best friends. And I would really be worried about the implications of impairing my immune system chronically when my functional goals are so wedded to manual pursuits in real-world, relatively dirty environments. Thank you.